Okay. There has been a lot of controversy about the Venus Project's concept of machine government. I want to try to answer some of those questions if I can. First of all, most people can't remember things like the early days of the Vikings. There were men rowing boats, and they were beaten sometimes, and sometimes they were not. Sometimes they used slaves to row boats. With the advent of machinery, it moves the boat much faster than people and doesn't hurt people. So it was not a machine takeover. The boats were operated by steam engines because they do a better job than people. People apparently cannot row a boat move a boat as fast as a steam engine. In the Volga River in Russia, people used to pull boats. They whipped the slaves and they pulled boats along the river. On both sides of the river they had ropes and they used to pull them. With the advent of the steam engine again, it freed the slaves. It wasn't that men freed slaves. Machinery frees the slaves. And I can assure you, if all the machines stopped in this country, we would use prisoners to work the roads like they do in the South. We would use people if machines stopped. So people think there's too many machines in the world today. What they don't seem to understand is what machines do, they really don't know. And they project their own values into the Venus Project concept without asking us, do the machines make decisions? Does man participate? That's what they want to know. Man will participate until the machine surpasses his performance. And when the machine surpasses his performance, they will use machines. They always ask me, can a machine be more adequate than the designer? I know a team that work together on automobiles, and they can't run as fast as a car. Machines seem to always surpass the performance of the designer. A designer that designs machines with perfume in bottles filled with 100 spigots at once. Those bottles move by faster than any designer can move those bottles and fill them with perfume, milk, or soft drinks. And when they say, well, what will humans do? Humans today use machine guns, but they do waste a lot of bullets, even in war. I'm not upholding this, I'm just discussing it. And today they have a laser beam on the gun. And if the laser beam is on you and you pull the trigger, bullets come out. If it's off you, you pull the trigger, no bullets come out. Therefore, the Army installs that. It isn't a machine takeover. It's just that machines save a lot of bullets, if you're interested in that. I'm not interested in that, but I'm just telling you what machines do. Those of you that can go back in time by reading about the past, you'll find that people that operated elevators were unstable. The elevator was not able to stop exactly on the floor. It took a skilled elevator operator turning a crank to get to the floor. With the advent of sensitive technology, today you press 20 and the elevator stops on the 20th floor. It doesn't have to go up and down. When you say there's too many machines, I don't know what people are talking about. I really don't. I think that when they say, well, would there be a machine government? How can machine government feel for people? How can they feel empathy or warmth or love toward human beings? At least human beings in government are people with feelings. And if you put machines in, machines might decide to take over. This is what they fear. This is their own projections. Actually, guided missiles are guided by people. Bombs are dropped over cities by people, although the machinery that holds the bomb is released by a person. People with machine guns kill people. Bombardiers and airplanes use instruments. Now there's an altimeter in the airplane that gives you your altitude, just how high you are above the ground. Humans are not that accurate. When they look out of an airplane, they can't tell you exactly how high they are. They can only give you an approximation. I'm about 2 miles off the ground. But an altimeter with radar can bounce on the ground and bounce back and give you your height. Not only that, from 3,000 miles out in space, we can photograph areas of the Amazon jungle. If the Earth turns under the satellite, we can photograph the whole world and see plant diseases all over the world. In one day, in 24 hours, computers and infrared cameras can show us the condition of all jungles and forests. It would take man a couple of years to go ahead and survey that, to go through the forest and say there's 4,000 acres of contaminated plants. Or a satellite can do that. Did the satellite take the job away from people? No. It's been assigned that. In the very early days, men used to trade bushels of wheat for corn and other things. But the estimated weight of the guy that's selling the corn seemed to be a little heavier than what was in the bag. Human beings tend to take advantage of other human beings. That's why they sign contracts, because they really don't trust each other. If I say this is guaranteed for 5 years, you say sign on a dotted line. That means you don't take my word for it. People used to take a person's word for it, but people vary too much. And it seems that they tend to work in ways that serve their own individual interests. That's why you have a scale in the supermarket. You have a scale at the butcher shop. You put the chicken on it, it weighs 6 pounds, that's what you pay for. But in the early days, before the scale, the guy used to estimate the chicken weight, the butcher. And he always estimated a little on the high side. And the customer always felt he should be on the low side. So anyway, they got into argument about the weight of the chicken until the scale came in. Did the scale displace the butcher? No. It made things more equitable, that's all. So people in the army used to fight each other. If a man was big, he'd pick a man up and throw him against the wall. Today, however, the gun became an equalizer. You have a gun, the big guy has a gun. You both have an equal chance, a better chance. I'm not advocating war or advocating guns. I'm just talking about the machine age, so you understand me. People row boats for sports, but they don't go on trips with a yacht with men rowing anymore. Hundreds of men on the yacht rowing. They don't do that anymore because the diesel engine does the job faster, better, and more predictability. Now, when you go on an ocean liner today, who makes the decision? I would say that the cook, if he knows you're going to have 800 people on the boat, he knows how much water because he gets it from past experience. For showers and how much food and how much salad. He doesn't just arbitrarily order 50 pounds of beef. He has to know there are going to be 5,000 people traveling around the world for 2 months. Then he bases his orders on that. That's exactly how the Venus Project works. There's nobody sitting around saying, I think we'll turn out 4,000 automobiles today. They turn out what's necessary. Is that clear? This way, if you just turn out refrigerators, you put them in a warehouse. You hope that next year enough people will buy them. But if they don't, they stay in the warehouse. That's machines not serving people. We build houses, and we hope people will buy the houses. If they don't have the money, the houses sit there empty, and people sleep in the lot, or they'll make a tin hut. That's depriving people of things. So when I use the word machines in government, I meant areas that people can't handle. For example, the information that comes down in one day from a satellite would take 400 years to decipher. And today, a satellite can pick up information about the Earth, fish migration, things that man would have to be all over for, and he wouldn't be as accurate as satellite. So when I say in the future, machines will manage government, not people. The production of food, the production of transportation units, the production of building materials, all of those things will be done by machine, only because it's faster and more accurate than man. If you don't understand us today, with binoculars, you can see a greater distance, and you can see animals and people that are far away. It brings them closer. I would say binoculars are extensional devices to the visual field. I would say the telescope is an extensional device that extends human perception of distant objects. Now a person says, yes, but why don't people do that? Because they can't do it as accurate as binoculars. Even if you wanted to see more detail far away, you can't adjust. Your eyes don't work at a 2-mile distance for deciphering information. So Army issues binoculars to people. The Navy issues binoculars to people because they're extensional to people. A crutch is extensional to people that have difficulty walking. But beyond the crutch, there are electronic legs that can move by running an electronic cycle, and that enables people who couldn't walk They're able to walk. Now, of course, you can use a person and hold a guy up while he's walking, but it's not as effective as machines. So people that picture a bunch of machines running the government and running people's lives don't know what they're talking about, and they don't understand how the Venus Project uses machines. When I say machines in government, they will assist man until they can surpass man's performance. That has nothing to do with me. Industry will use whatever machines they can to speed up production if the cost is less than paying workers. And we know that every year the machines are getting faster, cheaper because they're turning out more, and electronics is much more sophisticated. They have a little unit today in electronics that has over 100 books, which you ordinarily have to carry around. You can read in that machine, page by page. You can even turn the pages without actually picking up a book and turning the page. It hurts to hold up a book. And if you put it on a table, you need lighting. The unit that they make today can house, some of them can house hundreds of books. And you can say, well, there are too many machines in the wall. Well, we'll take your computer away, your refrigerator, and we'll take your washing machine, and you can go down to the river and scrub clothing. So I don't think people understand the Venus Project. There are a lot of people that feel very negative about the Venus Project. Unfortunately, they project their own values, or they use deliberate deceptive means, saying a world run by machines without feeling. Machines don't need feeling, or as long as they turn out cool drinks, as long as they turn out bottled water, as long as they turn out baked loaves of bread by the thousands. The machines are all right. They save people from standing near that hot oven, putting in a unit to withdraw the bread. Only machine technology is not used always for the benefit of people. Today it's for the benefit of corporations. Let me back it up now. They blow air bubbles into bread so they're larger. You get a larger loaf for $1.20. Bread used to be 10 cents a loaf, and it was dense. It was real bread. Today it's over $1. And they're made to look larger. It would be illegal, but it says on the bread, so many ounces. That's how they get away with it, but nobody reads that. So I'm saying today, they use synthetic methods of increasing the profit. Now, even a gas station used to have a guy, and he says, you want your tank filled? And he'd fill it, and then you tell him when it was filled. You got a meter in your car that shows full. But today, when you put the hose against the car and you press 5 gallons, you get 5 gallons. Of course, I can tamper with that, but I'm not dealing with that. Machines, if you go to any modern hospital and they're doing surgery, the machines check your body temperature, your pulse rate, your heartbeat, and the doctors go by those machines. They don't have the time in operating to check all those things and stop the operation. If you took the machine technology out of hospitals, the death rate would be much higher. I don't know what people are talking about. You fly in an airplane at 6 miles above the earth. They pressurize the cabin so that the air pressure in the cabin, outside the cabin, is a vacuum. You couldn't breathe out there. So they have air pressure in the cabin. That's all done by machine. The amount of pressure, the amount of oxygen in the air, all that's automatic. And so is most operating procedures are based upon techniques that worked. But in the future, there will be more machines in hospitals. Now, if there's a power failure, say due to a storm or hurricane, where the nation loses its electricity, in hospitals today, the generator goes on automatically. So the minute there's a power failure, surgery can't stop in a hospital because there's no light. So when you say there's too many machines in the world today, I don't know what you're talking about. If machines displace jobs, that's the misuse of machines. If they make machine intelligence with weapons, that's the abuse and misuse of technology. The Venus Project only wants to use technology to enhance the lives of all people rather than a selected few. And if somebody is against the Venus Project, please give us statistical evidence as to what the matter is with machine government. You say machines can't handle everything, People say that. Neither can man. Man can't handle everything. A very good person in an airplane can't take over the plane and fly it if the pilot dies of a heart attack. There's very few people in the airplane. Can you fly it, get in there and fly it? No. So You've got to be ruthlessly honest when you write about the Venus Project. And if you're religious, if you belong to the religious right, and you say the Venus Project has no soul. It also says in the Bible, judge not, lest you be judged. Or he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. So don't cast any stones at the Venus Project till you learn about it. And then you check it out with us if you're not sure of the meaning. But if you just write a bunch of articles saying the Venus Project believes more in machines than they do people, that's slanted and dishonest. That's thou shalt not bear false witness. When you read your Bible, if you understand it, just say, I don't know how the Venus Project makes decisions amongst alternative possibilities. If you present the Venus Project with 5 different possibilities, who decides which is used? That's the question you ask. How do you make those decisions? You don't say, my God, somebody has to decide it. And I don't like that. I like participatory democracy. The truth about participatory democracy is that it's never used. I don't remember any time that the government approached me for my opinion about the Vietnam War. No one approached me in government about the space program, saying we got to get out into space. Fresco, what do you think of that? No one ever approached me on the design of bridges, houses, anything. Somebody in government makes those decisions, and somebody in government influences people. Like the concrete companies would like the government to use more concrete. The lumber companies would like the government to use more lumber. So they have lobbies in Washington to try to get members of the Congress to appropriate money for wooden houses. Most prefabricated houses are made of wood. But is that the best thing? Well, it's the best thing for the lumber companies, but not for the public. Because if you make your house out of wood, you have outgassing from plywood, you have respiratory disorders, you cut down the forest. If you make your house with an aluminum roof, it's less apt to rust. And aluminum reflects 75% of the heat, although normal people think aluminum has to get hot as hell. That's their own projection. The actual physical conditions of aluminum are available on your website. You can get that information. So you don't have to take Fresco's word for anything, or you don't have to believe in anything the Venus Project says. But you can check out, why does the Venus Project want a machine government? Because man can't handle that information. In the technical age, there's so many new technical developments, and congressmen don't know anything about it. And technicians would take a long time to tell you what's available. But with computers today, you can find out what the greatest heat-resisting metal is today, what the strongest metal is today, its weight, availability, cost, everything. Man would have to go through a lot of files to get that information, whereas a computer can have it right away. All you do is type in the question. So if you say, well, I'd rather do that myself, I don't know what you're talking about. Even stores today have computerized tabulation of cost, because it takes too long for people to figure out the cost of a pack of beans, a can of broccoli, the box of... Well, if they had to figure it all out with a pencil, your line would be much longer at the supermarket. And the more machines they put in, the shorter the line and the less people employed. That's the technology, what it does. And eventually, there'll be so much technology, according to the book, with End of Work by Jeremy Rifkin. Get that book. It gives you statistical data of how machines are putting people out of work, and the automobile companies, to all production companies, are using more and more machines. Now, do you want them to hire people? If they hired people, they couldn't maintain the competitive edge. Japan will outproduce us. Japan uses automation more intelligently than we do. Japan has methods, other methods they're using, and they don't share it with other companies. Toyota builds cars its way. But when Toyota builds cars in America, it's cheaper than shipping the cars to America. They buy steel and they manufacture it on site where it's used. So I would say that eventually the money system will be surpassed. How? By automating most factories. And in that way, when you get rid of most people and most jobs, they won't have the purchasing power to buy houses, cars, vacuum cleaners, refrigerators, anything. And that's the end of the monetary system. Fresco doesn't advocate a Venus Project to throw out the monetary system. It's on the way out. It's part of social evolution. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Social evolution. If you don't understand me, If airplanes can travel today, passenger airlines, 600 miles an hour, I can tell you, if we're going to be around the next 15 to 20 years, they'll be faster than the speed of sound. They'll move over 1,000 miles an hour, then eventually 2,000 miles an hour. I don't know this, but it seems most probable by the study of invention and history. History says that automobiles will become longer lasting, better materials. The question then comes up, is it possible to design things that don't wear out? Yes, it's possible. If things are suspended in the magnetic field by rare earth magnets, you don't need any lubrication, ball bearings, or anything of the kind. That's one avenue of things that don't wear out. I think that the future will try to develop things that don't wear out to conserve resources. But today, when things wear out, somebody makes a buck. You have to buy a new one. It wore out. Automobiles wear out. Tires wear out. What the public really wants, they don't know this. They want things that don't wear out. But they don't know that they don't even think that way. Is it possible to make things that don't wear out? Well, a turtle shell seems to live as long as a turtle. Our clothing doesn't. It's better to change the hemline and styles in the spring, so people have to buy different kinds of clothing. The system wastes resources, lots of it. We also want self-repairing fabrics. When it tears, we want it to stitch itself. Well, that's ridiculous. How can you make self-repairing fabrics? Look it up on your computer, self-repairing material. You'll find out it's being done slowly. Eventually, the service industries will disappear. If you don't understand what I'm saying, and eventually you get in an elevator and you won't have to press 20 or 30. You'd say, 20th floor. I want to stop at the electric fan department in this department store. You verbalize, and the elevator will take you there. You won't have to press any buttons. Everybody pictures pressing buttons in the future. A button pressing is today's technology. Will machines someday care about people, or will they not care? Well, if you are a human being today, and you care, machines really don't care. They have no compassion, no concepts of love or warmth. Man has, and it's man that renders people unemployed by buying machines. It's man that outsources things to China. It's man that drops bombs on cities. It's man that pollutes the oceans. Machines don't. They may deliver the goods and dump it in the ocean, but it's operated by man. So man doesn't have a very good record. Apparently, in the name of God, men killed other men because they believed in different concepts of God. And or are religious people sincere? Absolutely sincere. But there are many different religions, and they're all sincere. It isn't sincerity that we need. We need knowledge, understanding of the earth, how it works, how we relate to nature and to one another. So if you're honest, please write us and say, would the machines take over and make us more like machines? How do you envision machines? And why do you decide on making a machine government? What are the advantages and what are the disadvantages? But don't write an article on your own concepts when you don't know how the Venus Project arrives at those decisions. Fresco doesn't make decisions. No one does in the Venus Project. We arrive at them. That means we test different materials, and that which resists heat mostly we use for rocket re-entry or high-speed vehicles, so the heat doesn't burn the skin off. So we have to make high heat-resisting metals for rockets. We have to have metals that are lightweight and strong for aircraft. Who decides that? The state-of-the-art. In other words, if aluminum is the best material, most available for airplanes, they will use it. If a new material comes out, it's abundant but not super expensive, we will use it. And that's the way decisions are made. Industry doesn't just use any kind of metal on car. They use different metals for different purpose. The valves on an automobile are made of a different kind of metal than the skin in the automobile. Different alloys. Who decides that? They mix different things together, try them out. That which holds up, they may use or may not. Some industries want things to wear out, so you'll have to buy replacement parts. If industry try to do away with wear and tear, they do away with themselves. Do you understand that? That's why you have planned obsolescence, because the industries want to survive. Are they bad? No. They're part of the history of civilization. They will all go through different stages. Until ancient Rome, there used to be people that made armor plate Today, the factories that make them, you can't find except in Hollywood, where they make them for historical movies. But there's no armor plate men. And there used to be horse and wagons. The wagon manufacturer gave way to the automobile and the truck. But if you like the good old days, like the Amish people, you can get a horse and buggy. But you can't travel on a state highway with it. You'd hold up traffic. You can only travel on country roads. If you don't understand me, look into the Venus Project and don't make up your own ideas as to how evil the Venus Project is by thinking of machine government. You're scaring a lot of people like yourself that don't know anything. And you're taking advantage of people by saying the Venus Project thinks more of machines than they do of people. They only do for dangerous jobs. I don't want people hanging out of windows of skyscrapers, cleaning the windows. I want a machine that goes around, cleans the windows, goes down, take the next floor. I don't want people hanging out of buildings. I don't want people working in deep mines. I don't want them doing that. It's dangerous jobs. So all dangerous jobs and radiation exposure or exposure to any kind of pain is not necessary today. We can design machines to do the dirty and dangerous jobs. That's what the Venus Project is about. So if you're honest, please write us. Don't say, well, he thinks more of machines than he does people. Why don't you check it out? And remember the Bible quotation. Judge not, lest you be judged. So if you wish to be fair, look into the Venus Project. Ask us questions, but don't slam the book closed, because your own knowledge is limited. But we would like to have machines out in space, like a satellite that guide our cars and tell us the weather and the migration of fish. We'd like a machine to answer all our questions, and we are moving in that direction. So more people turn to their laptop to get information than they do the Bible today. We don't use machines for profit. We use machines to enhance human life only. The profit motive is gone. Today, most people seek property, power over others, and wealth. They will not seek that in the future. The better educated people are, the richer the lives and more secure. When I use the term educated, I'm not talking about making money. I'm talking about restoring the forest, restoring the reefs in the ocean, cleaning out the polluted rivers and all the areas that we damage. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about how to make a buck. That was good 100 years ago because we had nothing else. I'm just saying if we want a world without war, hunger, poverty, we have to work on those problems, and they can't be handled by people, because they're so complicated. And machines can handle thousands of things at once. Man can't do that. So we say, what if the machine fails? That is, if you use one machine in a factory and it fails, you'd have trouble. So we'll have 3 machines geared to producing cool drinks or safe drinks. So if one machine fails, the next one takes over. Like what they call, if you know what it is, a turret head lathe. It has all the bits. The drill bit turns and it drills, then the other bit moves in and cleans out the part. They have a rotary head, so you don't need to change the bits anymore. Now that's bound to happen. If you drill a hole and then ream it out, or you ream it out first, and instead of putting all those things on a machine and tighten the chuck, the things are already there and they rotate the position. And that'll happen in the future, the very near future, when a doctor says, not to a nurse, to a machine, hemostat. That hemostat will turn, and the doctor takes it. The nurse has a tray full of surgical instruments. He says, clamps, and she grabs the clamps and gives them. In the future, the word clamp turns the clamp up. Machines will be doing that. Will the nurse lose their job? Maybe they'll be doing something else for a while, until the nurse can be phased out. Oh, you can't phase out a nurse. The proper way to say that is I can't see how nurses can be phased out. Don't say you can't, or man will never get to the moon. Just say, I can't conceive of how man can get to the moon. We'll never colonize Mars. It's too far away. Just say, I don't know enough about it to give you an opinion one way or the other. That would be honest. But when you say man will never get to Mars, as though you've worked on it for years and found out that he can't do it. If you have, give us your evidence. But it seems to me, eventually, if we don't kill each other in nuclear war, we will be able to travel through space and conquer most diseases and conquer mostly people and stupidity. That is the greatest physical disorder, is a lack of information that people have. And the fact that the nation says everyone should have a right to their own opinion, which is very damaging. When you do that, there are people that say, well, in my opinion, man will never fly. Well, if you give everybody a right to their own opinion, you might stagnate society, prevent it from moving forward. The best way to handle things that seem far out is I can't conceive of how that can be done. There's always been wars, there'll always be wars. We shall always have the poor amongst us. I can't conceive of that. I can conceive of a world of abundance where you don't have poor anymore. You don't have street people. You don't have human suffering. You don't have people losing their jobs. And to me, that is spiritual. But a verbal hobby, going to church, telling God how great he is, which is what they do in the Arab world, how great thou art, how wonderful the Lord is. The Lord is good. That's buttering the bread, my grandfather used to say. But anyway, people try to understand things with the tools they have. Most of the tools for thinking are rendered obsolete by machines, unfortunately. There are books that turn pages automatically for people that lost their arms. You can say turn, and the page will turn. Now, in the early days, a handicapped person was severely handicapped. Today, they don't do this, but you can say to the hospital bed, 45 degrees, and it'll move up. So you're 45 degrees. Both lights on. Window shades down, and they go down. You don't need to call nerves, but the window shades down. That's because the machine industry has an infinite capacity to learn to do things. How great will our capacity be? How well educated are our people? If they study physics, optics, automation, computer technology, their range becomes greater. If they live in Weehawken County and never leave Weehawken County, they'll be Weehawkenites, and they'll remain the same unless they travel, go to school. And the same with the critics of the Venus Project. They really come off angry. It's because they really don't honestly look into the Venus Project. So sure, if you've got constructive criticism, we want it. Venus Project wants all the criticism you can think of. But please, before you criticize, please look into it. Don't just come off with your own opinion. Any more than you want anyone else to judge you when they know nothing about you except rumors spread about you. So I'm asking you to be truthful and honest in evaluating the Venus Project. Or you can say, I can't conceive of machines actually inventing things. Well, we can show you how and where if you inquire. But you say, he talks to machines. Machines can't do those things. Just say, I can't conceive of how that can be done. In airplanes, you have a gauge that tells you how much fuel you have. It tells you what the overcast in San Francisco before you arrive there. Man can't do that. He can't look out of the airplane and see what it's like in San Francisco. He has information coming in continuously. And a pilot without such information, he says Newark Airport is closed due to the snow loads. The runways are slippery, so they shut down air traffic. They don't just shut it down. They do it for a reason. And don't assume that the Venus Project does things because people feel they want to do that. Human beings are the worst thing you can put in charge of anything because they have temperament, they have bias, they have prejudice. That's the way they're brought up in society. So I'd be afraid to live in a world judged by human beings. I really would be afraid. But if they tell us, the machine tells us, it hadn't rained for 6 months and the reservoir supply is good for another 2 years, I'd rather listen to that than any human being. Because there are machines that tell us how much water is in the reservoir, how long we can last, and they tell us if a boat is sinking, what deck to go to, and what lifeboats are available. They tell you where to go. You can't do that without machines.
Can you emphasize how the machines wouldn't abuse people, but we set up a system to make sure that it's for the benefit of people?
The reason we set up things to benefit human beings, because we feel the more engineers there are, the more real knowledge about the world, not metaphysics, not religion, real knowledge about growing food, feeding the hungry, enabling disabled people to walk. The more knowledge we have, the better we can make life for people. Now, if you made all those things, would people really be happier? Yes, they will. Because sitting at home as a cripple, and you can't get around, there's no wheelchair, electronically controlled, your life is limited. when wheelchairs are designed and accessible to everybody that needs them without a price tag. That would be more like what the Christians talk about. And I didn't like Christianity or Judaism or people that follow the teachings of Mohammed or Allah because they don't offer us a method for attaining those things. And if you believe in God, God gave us the brains to work on things and make things better than they are. And there's nothing wrong with man making things better than they are. In the early days, people used to think that the bulls and the bison were put here by God to do the hard work on the farms. And then when the Afro-Americans were brought over here, they figured God made the black man to do the white man's work. They had to figure it that way. Otherwise, people wouldn't probably stay away from slavery. So the church had to say it's perfectly all right in the South. If the church says don't have slaves, that's against human beings. It's against decency and ethics. That church would be closed down. The attendance would be lower. Because everybody that can afford slaves can turn out products for a lower cost. Do you understand that? If you freed the slaves in the South, the industry couldn't keep up with other industries. So child labor is the same thing. When you hire children to work, you work them Saturday and Sunday. Don't give them a day off. Say the company is the greatest thing you can work for. It's giving you food and clothing. Otherwise the children would be poor. So everything they push for child labor is where at least we're giving the poor kids a job. But the people that fought to eradicate child labor had difficulty because it threatened the competitive edge of a company. Do you understand that? When a company can hire children and pay them 1/3 or 1/5 of what adults get, you can sell things at a lower price than another manufacturer. So abuse of human beings is encouraged by the monetary system. Even blacks or Afro-Americans, when they got out of college, they were still given jobs of keeping the restroom clean, even though they were qualified for other things, because of our bigotry, prejudice, self-centeredness, and trying to maintain the competitive edge. That makes us unethical, trying to maintain the competitive edge, beating the other fellow. And the Bible is filled with cooperation. Words like working together, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience. So it isn't that I'm against religion. I'm against what it has become, part of the monetary system. Do you understand that? I'm not against any religion. I'm against what it has become, subservient to the monetary system.
Should we take some of the questions now?
Go ahead with the questions if you want.
Okay, very good, thanks. Okay, any updates on the major motion picture? We are starting to hear from more experienced studios and people. I think it's because of Paradise or Oblivion, I'm supposing. So we just had a meeting yesterday with somebody that looks very promising to write with us and work with us. He has a lot of experience in the field, and we'll see how that goes. We are also going to be meeting with others as well. And the audiobook, I know a while ago we talked about, I started reading The Best That Money Can't Buy, but I got into so many other things. I got into doing Paradise or Oblivion, and that took up all of my time, so that's a project I'll have to get back to. Sorry that hasn't been out sooner. But The Best That Money Can't Buy is now out in the ebook form on the readers, on, I think it was the iReader, I don't know, I think that's what that is, and Kindle and other things, so you can find it and download it that way as well. Okay, next one, what can one do, or what can people do when faced with government violence like martial law?
Well, that's part of the social transition. I can't advise you there. In other words, the system will try to perpetuate itself as long as it can, but it will fail all over the world. The big problem is that people don't know what to put in its place. Violence is normal during any transition. No matter what you believe in, people will hate you for it.
Are you familiar with Singularity? That's Kurzweil's group, University, Singularity University. Any attempt to contact them? No, we haven't yet. Yeah, I mean, that would be a good thing to do for the media group. I know somebody asked that before, but we didn't get that on that one yet. But we'll have to add that to our list of people to contact. And if anybody, like somebody who's asking this question, if they'd like to help contact different people like this, we'd be glad to get your help with that. What's the difference between the Venus Project and Agenda 21? That's a UN project that they're doing in Rio. I'm not really that familiar with a lot of the details, but anything that we have seen so far put out by the UN in large projects like this have always been within the system. They try and manipulate things within the system. I can't say for sure about this one, but everything that I've seen with them, they don't offer another social design or a whole new social system to work things out. They try and put band-aids on what already exists and try and perpetuate what exists. This next question, somebody's asking why we ask for resumes. You want to deal with this, Andrew?
Right, basically, in order for us to be functional in the TVP design teams, for example, in the 3D team, we need people that can do 3D. We need people that can do 3D unaided, that won't need a lot of support and time and effort into getting their models to the specifications that we need in order to be able to put them out there in public. So that is why I, in the 3D team, would get someone to send me samples of their 3D work. If they're good enough, then they'll go into the team. If they're not, then we reply and say, sorry, unfortunately not the standard that we need, etc., etc. The reason for doing this, like I said, is to make sure that we can actually get these projects done. So, for example, with the marketing team, we need people that have got experience in marketing. We need people that have got experience in search engine optimization, in advertising, in public relations, etc. Ideally, we would have every single person on the planet contributing to this, but unfortunately, we're all limited by the amount of time that we can put into actually doing our volunteering. Most of us work, and we've got family lives, etc., that we have to take care of. So it's really just a case of making sure that we have the right people on the right teams with the right experience and the right knowledge to be able to get these projects out there. And that's pretty much it, really.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, this is really the only way at this time we can judge the competence. Or they don't have a resume of going to school or anything. We just need to see the work they've done. That's no problem. They don't need a school background as long as they have the competence to do the work. Okay, how would a hospital operate in the future following the Venus Project's ideals?
Well, first of all, we would have to do a survey to find out how many heart cases there are or diabetes, and that determines how many hospitals we will build. But the hospitals will treat everybody with the best equipment they have. There are no special privileged people, and the hospitals will be given whatever equipment they need to operate with. In other words, there'd be no different qualities of hospital. It'd be the best quality we can produce at the time. That's service and equipment.
And the next question's about, do we have patents or Creative Commons for city designs? I would just have this person get in touch with me because they want to submit something of Jacque's design. So I would just say get in touch with me at meadows@thevenusproject.com. Next question, in terms of fill out some kind of a form so we could be called for consultants or to speak at the UN conferences. Yes, I think that would be a good idea. We could do it under our nonprofit Future by Design. Yes, we can look into that. I know somebody sent that to me. I just haven't had time to do that yet. Okay, Jacque, what is the best method to reach out for the common people in the streets? What's the best tool to reach out to them? Is it flyers, posters, personal interaction, questionnaires?
Personal interaction by describing or answering their questions as to what is science and how does science differ from other systems. What's the difference between a political system and an intelligently managed government? In other words, you'd have to fill in what they don't have. And if you're not capable of doing that, the book called The Best That Money Can't Buy is a book that'll help you to fill in.
Yes, and I would say also showing posters or showing the film Paradise or Oblivion and having questions and answers showing PowerPoint presentations. We're starting to put more of them up there. Lori just did a nice one. She's putting hers up. A wonderful idea that Lori Simmons just introduced to me, that she wants to make a presentation to show it to 10 people and then have those 10 people show it to 10 other people. And she's going to lay that PowerPoint presentation out so people can do that. Within the resource-based economy, technology would advance much faster than today. What are Jacque's thoughts on space colonizations?
Not until the world learns to live together. When you have one world directed toward protecting the environment and enhancing the life of everybody, then I would love to go out into space as a joint venture. I fear nations going out into space before they've joined together, because I think there'll be nuclear weapons up there, laser weapons. I don't feel secure with independent nations exploring space.
I'm working on a political system that can be described best as technological horizontal collectivism. I was thinking of using a social media network as the basis, kind of like a nonprofit Facebook thing. Is the Venus Project already working on something like something similar? No, not that I know of.
Read the book again.
What is Social Security and what does the government do about it, and what will be its equivalent in the Venus Project if it's equal at all to the project?
Well, everyone has access to resources, whether they work or not. And everyone is cared for by the access centers. They can access anything they need, or they go back to school if they want to, or they can become instructors. It all depends on each individual.
There's really no need for a program that's equivalent to Social Security in the United States. I don't know if this person's asking about what is Social Security in the United States. I don't have all the details of what they do, but you have to pay into Social Security all through your life, and then you, after the age of 64 or sometimes 62, or if you're incapable of working, you can get a certain amount of funds equivalent to what you put into it. So the Venus Project has nothing like that. There would be Social Security all your life in terms of equal access to all the goods and services that are available in a high energy system. Okay, this person wants you to preserve your body through cryonics. What will it take to convince them to do this? An awful lot.
I'm sorry. I don't think the future would want all the relatives of the past shoved down their throat. I think that new children trained in the new way and new thinking is what's needed in the future, not past value systems.
Who in psychology has influenced your strong belief in nearly complete nurture explanation for people's behavior? Is there anybody in psychology?
No single person. I would say many different books presented little bits of what is essential. Knowing the difference is a major problem. Know what to extract as making sense.
They're asking about your concepts of behavior influencing.
Well, I would say...
excuse me, your concept of environment influencing behavior. Did you get that from any particular person?
No, I got that from experience with people in different environments. I've traveled around quite a bit and found the influences of behavior as being obvious from different environments. I would hear a person speak in a southern accent, and I know they came from some area in the south. In England, there are people that can tell you exactly what district people came from by their regional dialect and their values.
Jacque, is socialism a good idea for a transition?
No, socialism isn't radical enough. It was good 50 years ago, but I would say today it's not updated enough. It's better than the price system, it's better than the monetary system, but it's not adequate.
Okay, would you advise to start a family to enable those children to be brought up with the Venus Project's values?
No, that wouldn't be necessary. The new schools would take care of that.
Do you think you should introduce people today, children, to the values that you talk about?
Yes, that's always a good idea.
Jacque, I have children and wondered if you would advise homeschooling them instead of sending them to school.
Well, if you have the time and the knowledge to do that, I'm all for it. But also you have to tell them the value systems of the dominant world today so they don't become alienated completely. You have to teach them about the values that different people learn in different countries that are not always relevant. And if you inform them well enough so they understand, they'll be better adjusted. But if you just bring them up with the same value system, they will clash with normal people.
Just a quick one on that. A good way to look at it is when you talk to someone for the first time about these ideas, you normally get one of two reactions. One, totally against it, totally, utopian, it will never happen, and completely unscientific. Or you'll get people that are inquisitive and want to learn more about it. You get exactly the same problem within the city. If the people aren't all of similar values, those values will clash and you'll get problems.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Jacque, is the Arab world too difficult to turn around their value system?
I don't think so. If you use diagrams and motion pictures, after all, they even have cell phones in the Arab world today. They have cell phones, photoelectric cells on the back of camels in the Arab world. No, they're ready to use anything new. And if you can demonstrate how it will enhance their lives, they will use it.
How do you think sociologists can help with the Venus Project?
They can help by reading chapter 1 of The Best That Money Can't Buy and then discussing it. Then read chapter 2 and on, discussing each chapter with each student or with the students that have questions.
Does the whole world need to be involved for this to work, or are there certain countries, perhaps those with key resources, that can sustain a resource-based economy on their own?
No, I think all people can help. I believe that there may be resources all over the world that have never been explored. So I think there's a tremendous potential out there.
But it doesn't take all people to
No.
make this happen.
You're right, Roxanne. It doesn't.
I think today we're only on the backs of very few people who give us certain technologies to make things happen in the world.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And for this ultimately to work, it would have to be a whole global system. One country couldn't exist making a resource-based economy by themselves.
It would be much easier on a global basis, and the standard of living would be higher for most people if we can get all nations to join in taking care of the environment and one another, without the use of armies, navies, or force of any kind. I also feel that in sharing resources and invention, we can move the world further along very rapidly.
Why do you speak ill about entrepreneurs? Not all they thieves. There are many smart, hardworking people.
I just said I would rather they worked for a resource-based economy than a price system, that's all.
And Jacque, what foods do you eat? What do you recommend?
I don't think there's enough information out there yet as to the best diet. I'm sorry.
Jacque mainly eats fruits, vegetables, grains, whole wheat, things like that. Stays more so away from meats. Can you say something about sports and dancing in a resource-based economy?
They probably will evolve their own concept of sports, and they will evolve newer types of what you call dancing. But I don't think that there'll be any particular style that will dominate.
This person is saying today most of them are designed to occupy people's time, sports and dancing.
I think they'll vanish.
Yeah, they really don't contribute much.
or perhaps some hostility and anger.
Sports, yes. Can we have the recipe for his infamous bran muffins? I don't know where that came from. This person is saying, interesting, a lot of the ideas presented in the Venus projects frequently as questions seem to be lifted straight out of the writings of certain Lenin, who in turn copied those from the ideas of establishing communistic as a common. Do you have anything to say about that?
I would say the details are not there. In other words, we've advanced technologically quite a bit beyond the teachings of Lenin. And I think that today's technology is far different and concerned for the working classes. In other words, if the working classes receive higher salaries, the price of the car goes up. In the future, there'll be very few people working and the standard of living will go up, not the price of objects.
I'd also probably say that John Lennon was born in 1940, Jacque in 1913. Jacque wouldn't have got his ideas from there.
Did you get any ideas from Lenin?
No, not really, except that certain areas haven't been worked out. I've never seen the details of housing, cities, transportation, except within the context of existing systems at the time. I never saw any projections of the future in detail so that we can build it. It says here, why don't you answer all emails? Sometimes I have answered many of the older emails, but a lot of you were not on that day. So I would say that I would try to answer any question.
If you're talking about emails directly, we get hundreds of emails. We honestly cannot get to all of them. If you're talking about the questions here, they are jumping around a lot. And if I miss some, if they popped up and then went back to what I've already answered, I might not have gotten them because I see that's happening.
Can I ask some questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Jacque, do you have a patent or Creative Commons license on your projects such as Cities in the Sea? I'm asking because I want to submit them to United Nations Solutions so that the license would be kept, that they will refer to you.
Can you just email me directly to meadows@thevenusproject.com with that, and we'll talk to you about it. What can be done for that?
Okay, also, should the Venus project apply for ECOSOC consultative status in United Nations? It will lead to representatives of such organizations can hold speech come to conference, hold speech in United Nations that will be translated, conferences that will be translated worldwide, and so use United Nations tools.
Yes, we think that's a good idea. We just haven't gotten around to it. I remember that you sent that question not too long ago through email, and we will look into that. Thanks.
Why don't we find more common and use existing networks and structures? I understand, I agree that we should first bring nations together to come to space, but I think that the fear that we will spend too much resources and just on space explorations, it doesn't correspond to reality, because the world struggling with itself, it will be unable to carry such large scale projects as terraforming. And also, I don't remember, I have watched Carl Sagan series for what year, but space budget was $38 billion and military world budget was $2.1 trillion. So all space takes only 1.5% of military budget. And it is dangerous to keep all the human species on one planet. And weapons we have can destroy all the life several times. So a giant asteroid can do it like it did with dinosaurs. And when we meet advanced civilizations, they can share technological and psychological knowledge that we can't even imagine for today how wonderful it can make our lives. And so I think space advocacy movements are our closest allies, because they can't do their projects without transition to resource-based economy, without bringing all the nations together, just if to explain them properly. And also many ecological anarchists, non-profit organizations are very familiar to the Venus Project vision of better future, especially if to explain them in their terms and from their point of view, their aims. So why don't we use more, we don't have so much time to build networks from zero. Why don't we use existing networks for transition and find more common with different organizations, present them via their interests and aims?
We do communicate with a lot of organizations, and other organizations are helping to promote what we're doing as well, and incorporating some of our things in their projects because they want to help the Venus Project. But I would say I don't see any other organization out there that is promoting to the extent of what we are promoting. They haven't come to the same conclusions that we have come to. So I can't really see getting behind like a World Peace Organization when they base it on ethical behavior and goodwill to people without a methodology or a blueprint as to how to achieve that. I see no other organization that has looked into human behavior and understand why we behave the way we do, and understand to the extent how important the environment is to change in order to get different types of behavior in people. They haven't arrived at the conclusions that the Venus Project has. So if you want to introduce this to other people and other organizations, we're all for it. Maybe they would like to help the Venus Project, but I can't see reverting back to something that we feel does not take care of the problems and just perpetuates them, while working with another organization to take advantage of maybe the large amount of people that they may have if they're not advocating something that we feel would really solve the problems. You want to deal with the space?
Well, there's so much work to be done on Earth. New transportation systems, the research in diseases, kidneys, heart disease, brain tumors, cancer, so many things to work on Earth. I think we ought to first get those things done, make sure we feed people, feed the hungry, the kids with swollen bellies, and take care of the Earth first, and then go off as soon as we can. I'm not against the space program. I just said there are other priorities I would rather see undertaken first.
And as long as we're getting the products that we are in terms of people's behaviors and people's values and their temperament, as long as we have a really underdeveloped people in this society and we go into space, we're going to be bringing those same detrimental values into space. So I think we need to learn how to grow up first on Earth before we even venture anyplace else, and do it in a sane manner.
One more very important question I have. One of the ministers told the Emperor of Russia that intelligent people prepare public for changes, but they're too intelligent to struggle, and that some power-loving people like Lenin may come and do awful things, and there are many such examples in history with like Muslims, Christians. So, Jacque, what can you suggest to prevent this? Just I ask because I see that similar things are happening in Russian Zeitgeist movement official forum. Just ignorant, power-loving people cover their painful feeling of self-importance with good ideas they don't implement and don't really understand. I don't say about I don't say about the whole movement. I know really kind, open-minded and brilliant people, Zeitgeist movement coordinators in South Africa, Italy, India, United States, Belarus, Chile, Argentina, and other countries. But Russian Zeitgeist movement administration makes me really worried. It is like authoritarianism and censorship. So I think the solutions like in something creating strong media channels promoting the Venus project and ideas. So and also better educating among activists, reconsidering value systems, forming new habits or something. What can you offer on this just to prevent some power-loving people just covering their power-loving with good ideas?
The way you do that is through education, not the standard systems of education, a new system of education on how to use the scientific method, how to surrender your ego in exchange for socially constructive development. In other words, the kind of people that this system generates are not the kind of people that can operate a socially integrated society.
How to promote it widely enough, because mass people are not so enough educated.
We're doing all we can, and if other people go out and try and do the same thing and talk about the Venus Project in any way you can, you said to have media channels, this would be great. We're producing books and videos, and other people are working very hard in introducing this and talking to other people and making chapters and having all those people go out and talk to other people. We have no large-scale funding for a lot of things that we'd like to do, so we do it any way we can. We're doing it right now. We do it on every Saturday when people come here for tours. We're publishing, as I said, more books, more videos. We finance that ourselves. So any way you'd like to help in spreading the word is what we need right now.
What we have to do is convince people of the benefit of surrendering the ego in exchange for social constructs. If you can't do that, you cannot change people. And we think here we're able to change people. In this world lecture tour that Roxanne and I have been on, we've changed a lot of people throughout the world. We had about 95% acceptance. So apparently, the systems we use do work. And we're going to use people and convince them that by surrendering their ego, they can achieve much more than an egocentric type of culture.
I understand it very well, but what can we do to spread this awareness quick enough and broad enough for people? Just how can we make it quicker and broader? To stronger media channels, or stronger education, or how this education to spread quicker?
Have you perhaps done a venue to show in Russia Paradise or Oblivion?
No, I haven't yet. I only...
That might be a good way to start. And then you can have questions and answer periods afterwards, or you can take some of the PowerPoints on the website and present them to people and then have discussion groups. Or if you want to translate Jacque's book, The Best That Money Can't Buy, then you can hold sessions with people there and read different chapters from it. We have, 32 hours of tapes on our website that you can present to people in your country, and then have discussion groups or start a chapter in your country and work on making presentations in libraries or schools or universities.
Okay, thank you very much. And just please answer my email about United Nations, because time is upcoming. We're short of time about this, and I think United Nations channels will just very broadly spread ideas worldwide. I think we should use them.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Well, I wanted to address this question really quick. It was about how do you deal with a power vacuum? And he was saying something along the lines of throughout history, when there's a power vacuum, inevitably somebody steps in and takes control. And we want to get to a point eventually where everything is systems approach to everything. And that basically spreads the responsibilities and access throughout the entire globe. We do not have that now, but we do have some smaller tricks we're doing as far as, for example, POCs, trying to get systems in place where there's more than one POC of a country and in every position within the Venus project have multiple people in those positions so that there's not one single point of failure. There's not one person in complete control of one total area. So this helps disseminate responsibility and therefore perceived authority. So there's a trick we're using in the short term. The long term, we're working on systems to really kind of automate this and take this out of daily human interaction.
I just want to add something to what Sean just said. This is why it is very important to actually work on ourselves to keep the integrity of the information that is being produced by the Venus project. So I'd like to advertise the TeamSpeak, the TVP TeamSpeak server, and the bot that is actually playing constantly the Jacque Fresco classic lectures. There's great amount of information in there, and at least half the question that were asked today could have been answered by, in there. So guys, I mean, really, this amazing stuff there. There's a lot of people here that are actually listening to it and that very much like it. So I'm sure that, you know, that there's going to be a lot of information that you're going to be satisfied with there.
All right, Jacque and Roxanne, thank you for coming.
We hope to see you next week, May 6, 2012.